in Portland, Oregon. And I'm just very happy to be with you all today and share some information about Lewis and Clark. I think we'll go around and let Shana and Hannah introduce themselves as well.
Sure, Hannah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Sherman. I use she, her pronouns. I am the executive director of Greater Portland Hillel, and I'm so excited to talk with you all about Jewish life on campus. So thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Shana Zins. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a student at Lewis and Clark College and also on the board of the Hillel there.
Great, thank you for being here tonight. Just wanted to let everybody know this is being recorded and this will be uploaded for, there's a YouTube channel with all of the info sessions, and so people will be able to access it at another time as well. So I'm going to pass it over now to Josh, and please tell us about the admissions at Lewis and Clark.
Awesome. Thanks again, Michelle. I'm going to share my screen. I've got a little bit of a presentation for you all to see, or at least you can look at something more attractive than my face as we go through the presentation this afternoon. So again, as I said before, my name is Josh and I use he, him pronouns. And I am one of the admission officers at Lewis and Clark. So we'll just spend the next 15 or 20 minutes introducing you to Lewis and Clark College, telling you a bit about the campus, our academics, student life, the culture there, as well as what you would need to do to apply for admission should you decide that Lewis and Clark might be a great sounding place for you. So Lewis and Clark is a private institution, but with a public conscience. We're a residential campus. Students live on campus, but we have a global reach. We're a community of students and professors that pursue new ways of knowing. They combine the classic liberal learning methods of collaborative, hands-on education. And our students come from all over the world. It's a global community. They're thinkers and leaders, people who just aren't afraid to throw away some of the conventional ways of thinking. Our students are drawn to our campus, I think, by the stunning natural beauty. It's 137 wooded acres in the hills of South Portland, Oregon. They're also attracted to our commitment to sustainability, our rigorous academics, and of course, our outstanding study abroad programs. So as you can see from the data on this slide, we have just under 2,000 undergraduate students. Our average class size is about 17. So you're going to be in small classes. We guarantee that you'll graduate in 4 years. And all of our classes are taught by professors. So we're very undergraduate focused. There are no graduate teaching assistants. One of the first things that I think about when people ask me to describe Lewis and Clark's students and the academics here is that our students are engaged. Students and faculty are very much committed to learning together. It's collaborative. As I mentioned, our classes are quite small, and it's a place where students are engaged in their own learning. They're not passive spectators in lectures. They're very much engaged. They have a lot of freedom as they're selecting their courses and constructing their own education. So when you think about the liberal arts, there are many ways to look at it, but I think on a basic level, liberal arts is both breadth, meaning you're studying many different subjects across the curriculum, but also depth. Liberal arts isn't just about studying many things. You do get to specialize and study deeply in the subjects that you choose to major in. It means that you're going to take classes that span the curriculum. You're going to be exposed to new ideas, new ways of thinking about things, things you haven't considered before. But in your major, you are going to dig deeply and study deeply in the field that you choose. And you might have two majors. The curriculum at Lewis and Clark is quite adaptable, so it allows you to follow your curiosity and discover new things. Perhaps there's something you've never even heard of before that you want to explore. So people often ask, how then does the liberal arts education prepare you for success after graduation? And I can say that no matter whether you choose to major in biology, international affairs, psychology, entrepreneurship, that across all of those majors, you're learning strong communication skills, quantitative skills, You're learning how to be collaborative. You're learning how to execute your own creativity. You're learning how to think critically, solve problems, and these are all the exact types of skills that employers are looking for in the current marketplace. So Lewis and Clark students hail from all over the country and all around the world. Our students represent 47 states and more than 60 different countries around the world. Our students come together and share an incredibly diverse array of perspectives coming from these very diverse backgrounds. And that's really important to us. It's important for us at Lewis and Clark to be a welcoming and supportive place. And we hope to be a place where students can engage and be their authentic selves. So I've already mentioned a couple of times actually that the students are very much engaged in their academic pursuits, but I think equally important is the idea of being engaged in the community. And that largely happens on campus through our student organizations, everything from the climbing club, student newspaper, student government, all the intramural club and varsity NCAA Division III athletics. But it also means being engaged with our home, our host city, Portland. Community means civic engagement on a national level as well. And even having an awareness of where we fit in a global scale. So we have a plethora of student unions on campus, and those are important organizations for students to belong to. They're students that are studying development and sustainability in Morocco. They're students that are just generally focused locally, but also with a global mindset. And as I've mentioned, we're quite lucky to be located in the quirky, green, delicious, wonderful city of Portland. You can come up with so many adjectives to describe this place. But many of our students and our alumni describe it as really being the best of both worlds. We have this beautiful forested residential campus in a quiet neighborhood in the southern part of the city, right adjacent to a state park. So it really is like kind of a secret garden in the forest. But we're just 6 miles, about 10 or 15-minute drive right from the heart of downtown Portland, everything that Portland has to offer. Concerts, events, great food, definitely a vibrant art scene in Portland. And it also means that our students have access to internships and working and jobs, perhaps our first job after they graduate from Lewis and Clark. So over half of our students are going to engage in an internship at some point. Those aren't necessarily all in Portland, but many of the students do have those internships in Portland. I'll also say it's quite easy to get around. We have a free shuttle that goes regularly between campus and downtown and other neighborhoods in the city. There's great public transportation in Portland, also shared bikes. We have zip cars located on campus that you can check out, and plenty of other ways to get around. Also, I think that our proximity to outdoor recreation is a really attractive part of our life on campus. We're in a beautiful part of the Pacific Northwest. As I mentioned before, we're right next door to Tryon Creek State Park. There are miles of running and hiking there. And also we're about an half from both the coast where there are beautiful beaches or to the west, the mountains where you can actually ski year round in Mount Hood. And we have a renowned college outdoors program. The college outdoors program provides all sorts of opportunities for students to explore and learn about the natural environment of the Pacific Northwest. There are more than 100 different trips per year, from like one-day clinics where you learn how to identify mosses or ferns or lichens, or week-long sea kayaking trips that you can take over spring break. There are even new student trips before you even begin as a student at Lewis and Clark. Before your orientation, you can go on these trips that last a few days before. So you get to meet a little cohort of students before you've even gotten to campus, where you think you may be overwhelmed by the size of your first year class. But anyone can participate in the college outdoors. And as you can see from the number on the slide, almost everybody does. I think it honestly is one of the programs that really attracts students to Lewis and Clark. But students don't only want to explore the neighborhood around us in the Pacific Northwest, our students are really interested in exploring the world. One of the most distinctive aspects of Lewis and Clark, I think, is the way that we embrace a global perspective. And to an extent, I guess, that's not so widely seen at colleges around the US. Our students really are engaged globally. And I mean, it's one of our graduation requirements, in fact, that students engage globally. And the way that most students accomplish that is by spending a semester overseas. So just over 60% of our students will take that opportunity to spend that semester abroad. The programs are culturally immersive. They're experiential semesters where students travel with a professor from our own campus. So they're actually programs that are designed and run by Lewis and Clark faculty, where you can study language, culture, and even continue in-depth study in your own major or minor programs that are really a core part of your curriculum. And our students have, or alumni have really great things to say about their study abroad experience. You can see that from our surveys that they describe that this study abroad as being transformative, impactful, and eye-opening. We really believe in the global perspective, and a firsthand global perspective is really a critical part of a modern liberal arts education. So we think that an undergraduate education should take 4 years, not 5 years, but 4. And it's becoming more and more common, I think, for students to struggle in universities, getting into the classes that they need to graduate on time. But we are so committed to the fact that you'll get through in 4 years that as long as you are signing up for a full course load each semester, which is 16 credits, and meeting regularly with your advisor, we guarantee that you will graduate in 4 years. And if you don't, the 9th semester is free. Also, if graduate study in education or counseling or law is something that you're interested in, we have ways for you to pursue those too. Despite being a small residential liberal arts college, we also have a law school and a graduate school as part of our organization. So we have a 5-year option with our graduate school, where if you wanted to become a teacher and get a master's degree in education, you can do that in 5 years. And we have an accelerated 6-year program with our law school, where you can get both your undergraduate bachelor's degree and your law degree in just 6 years. So if you're a current senior, I'll tell you a bit about our application process. We use the Common Application. That's an application you're probably already familiar with. And if you're not, it's accepted by hundreds of colleges around the country, where you complete the single application and you can send it to quite a few different places. Our latest deadline is January 15th, but we also offer early action and early decision options earlier in the fall. And you can see here on this slide the items that we consider for admission. It's pretty typical of private residential colleges like ours. You can also see on the slide that we do not require ACT or SAT scores. And in fact, we've been test optional since 1991. We were a pioneer in recognizing that the ACT and the SAT are not the most important part of a student's application for admission. So you do not need to submit those. And we definitely do encourage an interview. That's a great opportunity for those of us on the committee to get to know you in a way that's not grades and test scores and the things that we read in your application. Also, if you have questions about affording a private education, we can definitely help you with that as well. Nearly all of our students receive some form of scholarship or financial aid. All students are automatically considered for our generous merit-based scholarships, and those range from $20,000 up to full tuition. And to be considered for need-based financial aid, you just need to file the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid, and that will potentially qualify you for additional grants, loans, or work study options as well. So if all of that sounded interesting or appealing to you, I can tell you that we think that you belong here and that you should at least explore the possibility of joining us. We are open for in-person visits. You're welcome to go online and register for an opportunity to come see us this summer. And we are planning to be fully operating residentially and in person in the fall when we resume classes in August. We were also in session this past year. We, of course, undertook some special protocols to ensure everyone's safety. Regular testing was taking place, but we were able to have on-campus and in-person classes this past year and plan to do so again next year. So I'm happy to use the rest of the time to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Josh. I have a couple questions that we received prior to this session. One of the questions is about the STEM programs. Can you talk a little bit about the STEM programs, please?
Yeah, I absolutely can. I think it's a common misperception that people have that small liberal arts colleges might not be the best places to study STEM fields. And I think that, in fact, the opposite, as counterintuitive as it might be, is actually true. Because we don't have large graduate programs, our professors are 100% focused on teaching undergraduates, yet they are still leading scholars in their field. They still have active laboratories. They still receive National Science Foundation grants that fund their research. They're making important discoveries in those laboratories. But unlike at a large research university, where those labs would be staffed by people who are studying for their PhDs, maybe their master's degrees, and honestly, there are a few undergrads get to work in those labs as well. But the bulk of them are graduate students. At Lewis and Clark, they're all undergrads because that's all we have. So it's the professors and the students. You get to do the types of things that a PhD student would be doing in a research laboratory at a big university. You get to do it here as an undergrad. So it's an excellent place to study biology, chemistry, physics, computer science, mathematics. They're great, robust programs to prepare you for graduate school and career in STEM fields. And if you're interested in engineering, we don't have an engineering department per se, but we do partner with a number of big engineering schools, including USC, Washington University, Columbia University in New York. And with those, you can, they're combined programs where you spend 3 years on our campus at Lewis and Clark, and then 2 years there and get 2 degrees, actually 2 bachelor's degrees. So that's another way to kind of get all the great things from a liberal arts education, as well as ultimately get an engineering degree. So the answer to the question is yes, it's an awesome place to study STEM fields.
Another question that I have here is about support for students with learning differences. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of academic support you have on campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have really strong academic support programs. There's tutoring available in writing and math, as well as different academic programs. And for students who maybe have been having some type of accommodation for their learning differences in high school, that can continue in college as well. The process is a little bit different, but we have an office of advisors that would and counselors that would meet with you and develop a plan that's unique to you, that may include things like extended time on tests or note taking, the same types of accommodations you may have had already in high school. That can certainly continue. So I would say that it's certainly a supportive place for students who learn in a myriad different ways. And also, I'll note that just by being a small place where you know your professors well and your professors know you very well, that alone, I think, makes a small liberal arts college like Lewis and Clark an ideal place for students to study, because your interest and the professor's interest are one and the same, and they're eager to see your success. So they're going to work with you. They're flexible in terms of having time to meet with you individually outside of the classroom. So there's definitely going to be a lot of people cheering you on and supporting you.
Speaking of professors, how much access do students have to professors? And do freshmen have less access than seniors? Can you speak to a little bit of that?
Yeah, I can certainly. You as I mentioned before, professors teach all of our classes, so you will have full access to faculty and real professors, not graduate teaching assistants, your whole time. That access doesn't change over time. I think you'll develop closer relationships the longer you've known professors, and so you may be more likely to seek them out and engage with them outside of just the scheduled class time, but it's certainly a place at Lewis and Clark where the culture is for students to work closely with professors all through their 4 years. I might ask Shayna if she can expand on that. She's a current student, so she's living this as right now, and can tell us more of what her experience has been working with her faculty.
Yeah, faculty are so accessible. Office hours are the best thing on the planet. Every single teacher has office hours, which is times that they're available throughout the week, and that you can just walk into their office and chat with them, or if you're not in person over Zoom because COVID, there's also, because the class sizes are so small, you really are able to connect with your teacher. I had a Spanish class where at the end of every semester, the teacher invites that class home because she lives like down the street from campus, and we just go and make empanadas. The teachers are just very friendly, and you can have awesome relationships with them. I still send her emails even though I finished my Spanish requirement or language requirement. So the teachers are super accessible, and I would agree, the longer you're there, the closer you are able to get with some of the faculty, but they're super, super accessible.
Yeah, certainly one of the relationships you'll have with your professors in some cases will even be lifelong. It's definitely the case that students continue to engage with some of their favorite teachers for the rest of their lives as they're making career changes and have questions. It wouldn't even be unheard of to see a member of the faculty as a guest at your wedding someday. That's the type of relationship that I think our students have with a lot of the professors.
Great, thank you. Well, if there are other questions that come up, we can save them for the end of the presentation. Thank you, and we'll make sure to send out your contact information and the information that's listed here to all the participants. So next, I'd like to pass it over to Hannah.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I don't know if Josh, if you have to stop sharing in order for me to start. There we go. All right. Okay, let me just pull it up. I've got all the tabs open on Chrome. Here we go. Okay, so I am going to talk, as I said before, my name is Hannah Sherman. I use she, her pronouns. I am the executive director of Greater Portland Hillel, and I'm going to talk about Jewish life at Lewis and Clark. Okay, so who we are and what we believe. So we are a multi-campus Hillel, predominantly serving Lewis and Clark College and Portland State University. We also serve Reed and University of Portland in smaller ways, but these are our two main schools. And we are a staff of 3. So like I said, I am the executive director. We have a Jewish student life coordinator whose name is Leah Chasen, as well as an Israel fellow. So someone who actually comes from Israel to Portland to do Israel-related programming. In addition to that, we also have 7 student board members, Shayna being one of them. And these 7 students are responsible for helping us reach our breadth on our campus, do wonderful and amazing programs, and make a really wonderful, welcoming, vibrant Jewish community on campus. So we are a staff-led but a student-driven organization, being a space for all students, regardless of background, knowledge, political beliefs. This is a way for our students to find a Jewish home away from home on campus. In this picture on the side, we were lucky enough to win Hillel International's Outstanding Campus Award in 2019 for our great work that we do on campus, mostly at Lewis and Clark and PSU. So I next am gonna show just a short video because I thought what better way to talk about our impact on campus than to hear it from our students. So I will show that next.
CDX Hillel has given me light in dark times by providing steady support and enriching the community. Whether we're at Shabbat or just planning events, our Hillel leaders have always been kind, empathetic, and overall just really open to helping us in any way they can.
During these dark times, PDX Hillel has been a great place for me to be able to have a support system, some people I can talk to, and just the consistency to do week in and week out.
For me, Hillel has been a really nice place to socialize when normally I get on Zoom for my classes. Hillel lets me get on Zoom to see friends and meet new people.
It's been great to be a part of PDX Hillel during this pandemic. I just love being able to go to JSU every week and be in such a safe, warm, and fun environment. It's been such a good, steady thing to have during these unpredictable times.
PDX Hillel has given me a community throughout the years that has withstood the test of this quarantine and has been there for me when I cannot be with my own neighborhood community.
PDX Hillel has given me light in these dark times by giving me a community, by giving me something to do with my free time, by giving me skills to lead programming and to write programming. It has given me so much support, and I really could not thank it enough.
PDX Hillel has helped me a lot during these times. The best resource that they have given me is our wonderful staff, without a doubt. They motivate us, they give us professional and emotional support.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for always checking in and supporting my individual interests outside of Hillel.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for providing a space to connect and support in planning remote programs.
Thanks, PDX Hillel, for giving me a great group of friends in college and for making life a little bit more interesting during quarantine and COVID.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for helping us create such a great environment for us students to have, especially during this pandemic.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for giving me the resources so that we can create a space for the Jewish and the Zionist community to get together. And for that, I am grateful.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for always being a place I can call home.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for giving me the joy and friendship and community that you have.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for giving me a community, a place to express my Judaism and learn with friends.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for your support, for helping me during my time of personal struggle, and for helping the community during this time of community struggle.
Thank you, PDX Hillel, for keeping the community thriving and always being there for us.
So a little bit about our population of students. So we estimate that roughly 10% of the undergraduate population at Lewis and Clark is Jewish. So somewhere in the approximately 200 Jewish students. And we have also been told by the Office of Spiritual Life at Lewis and Clark that the Jewish community is the only growing religious community on campus. So we continue to see more and more Jewish students each year, which is something as Hillel that we love to see. And like Josh mentioned before, students come from all across the country. We see that many of our Jewish students specifically come from the West Coast, most of them from California. So it really is a great way for all of our students who have something in common, their California roots and their Jewish roots, to then meet each other at Lewis and Clark through Hillel and our Jewish community. And most come from either non-denominational, reform, or conservative households. I would say we have very few students who identify as Orthodox, and many also come from interfaith families. So we really see ourselves as an open space, an open community for people to come and learn. We don't expect anyone is coming with any Jewish knowledge or background. We really are a space for all students, regardless of that religious background. So a little bit about our programming. As you can see, these are our pre-COVID examples. So I'll highlight those and also sort of how we functioned during COVID. So all of our programs were virtual this year. While many students were living on campus and there was life happening on campus, for the safety and well-being of all of our staff and students, all of our programming was virtual this year, but we are very much looking forward to returning to campus in the fall in a much more in-person basis. So when we do in-person programming, all of our programs take place on the Lewis and Clark campus. whether in dorm lounges or other public spaces on campus. We really meet students where they're at and meet them on campus in a way that is approachable for them. These are some examples of some programming that we've done, and I'm sure Shayna will also highlight some great things that we do for programming and students on campus. But we have freshman specific programming. So something called NSO, it stands for New Student Orientation. That is a week at Lewis and Clark leading up to the first week of classes. That is all for freshmen to get to know each other, to get to know campus. And we have a specific Shabbat that we put on called NSO Shabbat, which is a great way for us to meet students, meet freshmen as they're coming to campus, show them that there are other Jewish freshmen on campus, and really create this strong community from the beginning. We do Shabbat and Holidays. So as you can see here, this is the sukkah that we build on campus. We have programs all throughout Sukkot. The high holidays are at the beginning of the year this year, with Rosh Hashanah starting on Labor Day. So we are going to start working very quickly on what programming looks like related to high holidays on our campus. We have Shabbat usually about twice a month, so once every other week. And we really want to create that space where students can come and have a student-led Shabbat experience. So Shayna is one of our students who has led our Shabbat services for the past year, and really creating a welcoming and inclusive Shabbat community. Programs related to social justice. We know that is something that our students care about. Students who come to Portland care about social justice, and we really want to integrate that into our Jewish programming. We also know that Israel can be a topic of conversation on college campuses. And so again, we're not supposing that anyone has any specific political belief when it comes to Israel. All students, regardless of how they feel, are welcome to have difficult conversations, to find partners and communities on campus who want to talk about Israel, because it is not a black and white issue. And it is very nuanced, especially on college campuses. So we really want to engage around Israel in a way that's comfortable for all of our students. And wellness. We know that this is a big topic, especially coming out after a year plus of social isolation. We really care about student wellness. Staff are always here for students to talk to them about what they're going through. We put on wellness related programming. Last year we did a great Yom Kippur virtual spa night, and really trying to incorporate wellness into all we do in all of our programs, as well as joint campus programming. So like I mentioned before, we are a multi-campus Hillel, and this is a great way to do joint Portland State, Lewis and Clark programming to show that there are more Jewish college students in Portland, and sort of expand their social networks beyond just the Lewis and Clark community. And finally, engagement. So these are some great pictures, both during COVID and pre-COVID. We really believe in meeting students where they're at. So that is like a very literal sense of we come to campus, we meet students in the coffee shops on campus, we show up in the spaces where students physically are, as well as sort of mentally where they're at. We really want to hear what students are interested in. Our amazing student leaders put on fantastic programming, and also we want to incorporate the thoughts and interests of all of our students. So our staff and our student leaders will have coffee conversations with new students, returning students, all students, to hear what they're interested in. Jewish, non-Jewish, how can we incorporate all of their, all of the parts of themselves into our Jewish community on campus and integrate that learning into our programming. And I think in doing that, that really expands our reach on campus. It shows that we are representative of all of our communities that we see, and we really want to be reflective of the diverse community of Jewish students that we have on campus. So finally, I'm happy to take any questions. This is an example of my two other wonderful staff members. At the beginning of the year, we started a program called JIY, which stands for Jew It Yourself. And this was a way for us, while all of our programming was virtual, we came to campus and delivered little program bags. So like that Yom Kippur spa night I talked about, it had all of the little face masks and lotions and hot chocolate and all of that. We came to campus to deliver those programs and then did our programs virtually. So that is an example of some of the ways that we are present on campus. So happy to take any questions people have.
Thank you, Hannah. I have a couple questions here. you had mentioned Israel, and so I'm curious, what is the current climate around Israel and anti-Semitism on campus?
Yeah, so we know this is obviously a huge issue given the events of the past month, the past few weeks. Our students at Lewis and Clark were all gone for the summer when sort of tensions escalated in Israel. In general, because we have such a large population of Jewish students on campus, we have not seen BDS on our campus. We have not seen overt acts of anti-Semitism. We are very lucky in that it is a very welcoming space for Jewish students. That being said, obviously it is a huge issue. I know many college campuses across the country are facing BDS resolutions or lots of anti-Israel activity that is coming up. Again, we have not seen that. I think this summer is going to be very telling for what that looks like. We are very fortunate that we have a great relationship with university administration. So God forbid something does happen. Again, I'm not anticipating anything to happen, but if something did, we have amazing partners in the university administration, in the Office of Spiritual Life, in the student activities department, and also student to student groups. Because we are such a large student club on campus, we have great relationships. So I think all of that creates a more positive campus climate for our students when it comes to any anti-Semitism or anti-Israel sentiment that we could possibly see.
Great, thank you. I have two other questions to ask you. One is around different opportunities for involvement. Are they all social? You mentioned a number of social-ish are in nature. Are there other types of programming involved?
Yeah, so we obviously do a lot of fun social things on campus. An area that we've really grown in, sort of COVID gave us this great opportunity, and I think will allow us to continue even further in this area of Jewish education and what Jewish learning looks like. So we did a great program that Shana participated in called JLF, the Jewish Learning Fellowship. And that was a cohort-based learning group where it was about 20 students who came together, obviously online, and the theory is that next year we can do it in person, around text study. And I think that can sometimes be a very scary concept, but it was like watching video clips of popular TV shows mixed in with ancient Jewish text. And so that was a really great way to engage our students around Jewish education. We did a similar program called ILF, the Israel Learning Fellowship, again, sort of based on that cohort learning. So yeah, we try to use that combination of the fun, out there, we're out on campus doing great things, programming also with the more meaningful cohort-based and smaller group ways, because we know that some people are really comfortable in large spaces and some aren't. So again, it sort of goes back to the meeting students where they're at.
And the final question I have for you is about how do freshmen learn about upcoming activities? And now as we transition from COVID and being shelter in place, what are your plans for the new school year?
Yeah, so I would say that we have sort of several different avenues of how we notify students of programs. The first is we have a great Instagram account. And after this, I can share all of the different websites, social media handles, and all of that for the work that we do. So Instagram is a great way to engage students. We know that students are on Instagram all of the time. So posting flyers, posting about who our student leaders are so they can get to know our community. That's number one. Number two, we have also a great email list. So we send out weekly emails with the upcoming programs for the week and also looking forward to what programs students can expect in the coming weeks. And then also, it sounds very simple in 2021, but posting flyers all around campus is a great way for us to reach students because students are on campus all of the time. So just posting flyers in the various dorms, in various public spaces on campus is a really great way to increase our visibility and allow students to find out who we are and what we do.
Great, thank you. I think at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Shana. And so we get to hear about the student perspective of what's it like to be a student at Lewis and Clark.
Cool. Hi, I don't have a presentation, so you just get to look at me. Hello, I'm Shana. So I am a rising senior, which is wild. At Lewis and Clark College, I am a psychology major with minors in health studies and religious studies. So fun mixed bag of major and minors. I am involved with Hillel. I'm also involved with crew on campus, so sport, and I think that one of the really fun things about the liberal arts campus is that you can engage in so many different hobbies all at the same time and still have time for school and hanging out with friends. So there's that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I chose Lewis and Clark College, just in case that could be a relatable experience. I knew personally when I was looking at colleges that I liked the Pacific Northwest and its distance from Northern California, which is where I'm from. And so I was touring, I looked at University of Oregon, which was a lovely school, and it was also huge. And I didn't like the idea that professors could just not know my name. Like that was a really weird idea to me. And so I kind of turned, like in my brain, realized that big school was not for me. I also toured Willamette University, which is in Salem, Oregon, which it was a beautiful campus, and the school was really nice. It was just kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I didn't really like that I couldn't leave campus and do anything. And Lewis and Clark is kind of a perfect solution to both of those problems. It's about 10 minutes from the city, and it's really easy to get there both on the PIO, which is the shuttle that Josh mentioned, and with friends. It's also nice and small. As I mentioned, it's really easy to meet with professors. In fact, that's one of my favorite things to do. If they're grading your paper, feel free to just meet with them during an office hour and say, hi, here's my paper. What are your thoughts? And then you can fix it and turn it in later. And that's allowed. It's also, I'd never asked for an extension before college because it was really scary. But my friends were like, no, it's really easy. And it is. You can just email professors and they all know who you are. And it's really a nice community. I think freshman year, it's obviously really scary and hard to meet friends, but the school does everything in its power to give you that opportunity. So there's the new student orientation where you meet usually like a kind of cohort, like a group of people. They sort you out, so you like do activities with that group. And then you also have like a core class type situation. They've changed it. I think it's called Words and Numbers now. So words in the fall and numbers in the spring, but it's kind of like a core class. So it's an English class. You learn how to write a research paper and that kind of thing. And you get to stay with these people. And I still talk with some of the people that were in my NSO group, which is really cool. But it's also a way to just kind of start hearing about things. I also recommend any school you go to, but especially Lewis and Clark, going to the PIO Fair, which is our club fair. If you've never been to a club fair before, our campus especially is just so busy. Everyone's out there. We have a lot of clubs, as Josh mentioned as well, from just all of your interests will be there, I promise. There used to be a Harry Potter club. I don't know what happened to that recently. I haven't looked at that, but they really just, any interest you have, they probably have a club for it. Frisbee is really big on our campus. It's as close to a varsity sport as I think you can get while still being a club sport. Also rugby is really big. We are a D3 sport or D3 school as far as sports go, so it's really easy to balance sport and school. Obviously, harder than not doing a sport, but as a person who spends a lot of my time doing that, the coaches are really supportive and the faculty and teachers are really supportive. If you have to miss class for a game or anything, it's really easy to arrange that for any reason. Yes, and I was also going to talk a little bit about what it's like to live on campus. We have one big dining hall because, as mentioned, we're only about 2,000 students. It's a pretty small campus, so we have one dining hall called Fields Dining Hall, or Bone, since it is served by Bon Appetit. And the Bone, I like the food, but everyone's gonna have their own opinion. It is definitely, if you've ever had cafeteria food before, it's better than that probably. One of my favorite things about it is that they're so willing to try new things. So for Passover, Hillel got to plan the meal for the first and second night. So we got to pick brisket and Passover friendly foods. There was matzo ball soup, there was tzimmis, there was lots of fun things. We have an international week, and every single day of the week, they picked a different part of the world to serve food from there. It's a great, I like the dining hall. The dorms are really fun. There are lots of different dorms and learning living communities that you can go in. There's VAPA, which is visual and performing arts. There's the cultural and I'm blanking on the names of all of them, but there are a lot of really fun ones. There's sport ones, there's nature ones, lots of cool things to meet people who have similar interests to you. There's also, you are required to live on campus for the first 2 years. So you really are forced to meet people and hang out with people. And I think that I'm really lucky for it. I met some pretty cool people through that. Yeah, so that's my kind of spiel about what it's like to be a student on campus. If you have questions, I can answer those.
I have some questions that were sent in before. Can you talk, because you actually got to have a real true freshman experience, not in shelter in place. Can you talk about what that was like, what your freshman year is like at Lewis and Clark?
Yeah, so I personally, when I got there, I had a friend that I knew through a mutual Jewish friend, actually, who introduced me to Crew, which was how I made a lot of my friends personally. I also joined band my freshman year and Hillel, and those three things together were a lifesaver because it gave me access to upperclassmen, which is an underappreciated resource. If I do say so myself, it's really cool to have people say, oh, you're a psych major, avoid like this class. If you can get this class with this teacher, that's super easy. And like being able to meet people who have already done the classes that I'm doing and create a community are really cool. So if you have interest, if you like music, if you like art, if you like theater, that is a really, really wonderful way to meet people. And that's how I met my current friends. My whole friend group is either from Crew or from band or Hillel. I know I personally was definitely overwhelmed with starting college and school, and it took me a second to find my footing, but the teachers are really patient. And so there was an essay that I couldn't get done, and I worked with the teacher one-on-one, and we like created kind of, because the teacher had a loose deadline, and that was not a style of learning that worked for me. I kind of need hard deadlines. And so the teacher worked with me and we made hard deadlines, and I got a paper in and it was fine. And I wasn't marked down for that. They're really flexible. They're really patient. So like, even if you do struggle, there are lots of supports for you. I'm trying to think of other things that happened my freshman year. Oh yeah, there is also, I highly encourage, if you can, for you to just have a really good time at NSO. The new student orientation is really there for you to meet new people, because I know the biggest thing for me was it's a small school. It's very possible that you can go to the school and just not know anybody going there, which is a really scary experience. I can relate to that. And so they purposely give you every single possibility to just make friends as they possibly can. So take all of those opportunities if you can, especially before school starts with no responsibilities. Just like talk to people. There's also, there's a Discord that they started last year that was not used this year, but there are lots of different avenues to meet people. And that's, I think, the scariest part for me starting a small school where I wouldn't really know anyone was that. And so I think if you take those opportunities, it's not a problem at all.
Do you have some more advice for incoming freshmen? You shared just a little bit now, but do you have other things about how to navigate the academics or making sure you get all the classes that you want? Do you have any tips and tricks?
Somebody asked a question earlier about STEM, and while I am not a STEM, a hard STEM major, I guess psych still counts. My friend is physics, and so I know all about math and physics. And so I know that for all of the STEM classes, there is a resource called the SQUARC, which is a quantitative reasoning hub, I guess, and it is where you can get help for math and sciences, and it is super, super helpful. You can just go in there, just walk in there and ask for help if you're stuck on a problem. The higher up in math you go, the longer your homeworks take. You can only have one homework assignment a week, but it'll take you all week to do it. And so if you go to the SQUARC, you can meet other people who are in your class who can do it with you. You can meet people who have already taken that class who can help you through it. It's a really, really wonderful resource for STEM specifically. There's also the writing center, which if you have writing heavy classes, they'll read your papers with you. They'll go over different structures and ways for you to do that better, which is really cool. And also office hours. Use office hours. Get to know your teachers, meet with them one-on-one, talk with them about school, talk with them not about school. Use office hours. It took me half of my freshman year to learn that. And once I did, I was so thankful for it, because your teachers really want to get to know you and want to help you. And they don't know what you need unless you talk to them. So if you're a person who really has a lot of questions, you don't like asking them in class, ask them during office hours. If you want to go through the homework with your teacher, that they're just going to sit in an empty room otherwise, go talk with them, ask them questions. It's a really, really wonderful resource, and most of the upperclassmen are aware of that, but sometimes freshmen are scared to ask questions because it's scary. But office hours are super, super helpful.
And then finally, did anything surprise you once you became a student?
That's a good question. I think I was definitely surprised by the community. I didn't expect to kind of just be so familiar with people. It's weird to have COVID happen because there's a whole grade that I don't know, but my freshman year, it was really, you just see people. There are only 2,000 people there. It's about the size of my high school. You get to know a lot of people and you get familiar with a lot of people, and it's really a smaller community than you'd think. Cool. Sorry. So it's nice to get that opportunity, and I'm trying to think of anything else that was surprising. Sorry, people are walking through the room. I think also that I would highly recommend doing clubs. I was surprised at the different opportunities that were given to me through clubs. There are lots of student unions that I am not a part of, that I am not personally related to, but I've learned so much about different cultures through that. I also highly recommend going to the different school-sponsored events, because I didn't think that a silent disco was a thing that I was going to get at college, and it was during not COVID times, of course. Roller skating inside, just staying on track of what the school is providing, because you can get free boba from it, or food trucks, or that kind of thing. And because it's a small campus, it's really easy to access all of those things. So yeah.
Thank you. So before we wrap up, I just want to see if there are any more questions that you have, and any last thoughts from our panelists. Josh, Hannah.
I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining us and taking some time to learn about Lewis and Clark. And as I showed at my end of my presentation, and I think you'll get some follow-up contact information, email us, reach out, go to our website, lclark.edu. You can find your admission counselor's contact information there, and we would love to answer your questions. We'd love to see you. Come visit us. We'll give you a tour, and hopefully we'll see your application in a few months. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Josh.
I'll also just add from Hillel and the rest of the Jewish community on campus, thank you all for joining on a Sunday evening. And also, we're so excited to be back on campus in the fall. After a year plus of being almost all virtual, we are so ready to welcome all of you as we come back to campus, and we cannot wait to create this wonderful, vibrant, welcoming Jewish community. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to put my email in the chat, and then also I think hopefully contact information will be shared after this, and happy to answer any other follow-up questions that people have.
Great. Well, Shayna, you want the last word?
I was just gonna say, me too. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about campus. Let me know.
Okay, great. We will share all of the contact information with the list of participants, with the list of attendees, sorry. And with that, I want to say thank you so much to our 3 panelists, and thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us tonight here on a Sunday evening. Thank you, and have a great Sunday evening and a wonderful week ahead.
Thanks so much, Michelle. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.